Thank you very much. Dear participants, excellencies, my dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Qatari government and His Highness Emir for hosting this conference, as well as, of course, to French and Qatari colleagues, and to IFRI, to our dear colleague Thierry, for this very timely meeting, where I see many familiar faces of my former colleagues to discuss a basic issue, global governance. In fact, in these days, everywhere in the world, not only in Doha or Paris, in all capitals, there are many meetings to understand how things are going and where are we leading. So this question today, especially the title, Global Governance, is important. And the question is clear: are we going towards a global governance or to a world disorder? If you visit these capitals, you will see there is a source of concern everywhere. What will be the future of international system? What will be the future of EU? What will be the policy of the new American President, Donald Trump? And what will be the future of Middle East? If you ask me what is the key concept of all these sources of concern, I would say unpredictability. Today, unpredictability is everywhere. Nobody can see what will be happening next 10 years, even next year, 2017, which will be a year of election in Europe, and there will be many issues, including Syria. I would like to say very shortly, just to stimulate certain questions in our minds to discuss in future sessions. The question is, are we leading to a global governance? 19th century was a century of balance of power. 20th century was a century of international order after League of Nations and United Nations were established. And the hope in 1990s was that the future of international system will be global governance. The difference between global governance and international order is that international means based on nation states as the units, nations, and order is through the dialogues, relations between nations. While global governance is more interactive, more dialogue-based, more transnational, and in that sense, not only dialogue among nations, but dialogue as human beings, and interactive, interconnected system as international order. But unfortunately, after the Cold War, the hope, end of history, and many other new terminology like New World Order, global governance, now we are as if we are going back to balance of power rather than from international order to global governance, because every nation today in the capitals are talking more on their national interest, how to defend themselves against this unpredictability and insecurity in international system, rather than to talk on the values. Now what we have to look is, do we have a set of rules, a set of values, which, regardless of their religious, ethnic background, are respected by all? Unfortunately, today it is difficult to say this. We know in the history, after 30 years war, we had Westphalian Conference. After Napoleonic Wars, we had Congress of Vienna. After First World War, we had League of Nations. After Second World War, we had United Nations. But what happened after Cold War, which was a global war? For example, let me give you one striking example about this unpredictability and absence of values. Today, as His Excellency, our dear colleague, Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, just mentioned about the situation in Aleppo. Yes, we may have different views on Aleppo, US, Russia, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, European Union, France. But at least we should agree on two principles, because these two principles are valid for everyone and the basis of international law. One is to act together against war crimes. Secondly, humanitarian access to everybody. Why don't we respect these two basic principles even if we have differences of opinion on the future of Syria. Unfortunately, today there is no humanitarian access to Aleppo, and there is no respect to international law regarding war crimes. There is a collective punishment. And nobody raised this in international fora because everybody has different interest in this. We have three legs of this unpredictability and absence of global governance. One is psychological and politico-cultural, let me say, leg, which is spread of extremism and exclusivist policies. Terrorism, all we agree we have to fight against Daesh, ISIS, all type of, and Boko Haram, Shabab, all type of terrorism. But at the same time, we have to act together against policies of exclusivist approach or exclusion. Everywhere now, there is a rise of Islamophobia, there is a rise of xenophobia, there is a rise of populist autocracies which excludes others. So we have to have a common stand against terrorism everywhere because it is a threat against us, as it has been mentioned in Paris. I was there shoulder to shoulder with the leaders of Europe and the world against terrorism in Paris, in Istanbul, in Brussels, in New York, everywhere. We have to be together. But at the same time, we have to defend inclusive policies everywhere against exclusivist approach. The political rhetoric during the campaign, electoral campaign in American presidential election, we were very worried about this psychology of exclusion. Also in Europe, the rise of right wings. So this unpredictability is a big threat which is leading to exclusivist policies. Famous Ibn Khaldun's approach to Asabiya, everybody is going towards their own clan, tribe, isolationist approach. Second leg is economic crisis. We have to know that from 2008 until now, there is a huge economic crisis which was not seen before in the history of humankind. And despite of all common efforts, I attended several G20 meetings, common efforts and declarations. Today, we have a problem of recession, we have a problem of decline of productivity, we have a problem of rise of unemployment, which is leading to several crises, including Arab Spring. We should not forget that a Tunisian boy burned himself because of unemployment, and that started an Arab Spring. It may start new waves of reactions. The third leg is the inability or absence of dialogue of global players. Today, EU is talking not on global issues, but more on what will be the future of EU after Brexit. American public opinion is not talking on global affairs, more on what will be the policy of the new president. Russia, following a very assertive foreign policy, but lack of economic, the economic crisis is there. China is observing the limits of economic growth. Regional powers in our region and in the Muslim world, they are talking more on national survival rather than regional common destiny. So, in short, my dear colleagues, we are facing a big problem of unpredictability and source of concern. Based on absence of global governance, absence of common understanding, and rise of extremism, economic crisis, and inability and absence of dialogue among global players. What is the solution? In my conclusion, my suggestion is, solution is the key concept is inclusivity, and more dialogue, more sense of common destiny. We should not forget in 1930s, there was economic crisis, there was extremist policies, there was isolationist approach, there was rise of populist autocracies everywhere in Europe in 1930s, and the end was Second World War. We hope that the end of all this turmoil will not be going towards Third World War, but it depends on our efforts. efforts of statesmen, efforts of research institutes like IFRI, or as efforts of academicians and scholars and public opinion makers everywhere. Inclusivity is needed today. A new reform of UN based on inclusivity, a new economic system in the world of interdependence and inclusivity, a common understanding like civilizational dialogue everywhere to fight against extremist and isolationist, exclusivist policies, and a real, sincere dialogue among global players. I hope this forum today, World Policy Forum Conference, will be an asset for such a dialogue among us, and I hope the future will be a future of global governance rather than a future of balance of power based on selfish national interest rather than the common destiny of humanity. Thank you very much.